Is the laser fund legitimate? In this video episode, you will understand by the end that a laser fund is my name for what I call a max funded indexed insurance contract that is structured correctly and funded properly, because I would dare say that over 99% of IUL policies that are sold in America are not structured the way I'm going to show you here to perform as a superior capital accumulation tool, totally tax-free. So I'm going to show you what I deem a laser fund, which is built on the chassis of an IUL, but why so many advisors do not understand how to do it correctly and what makes the difference and what makes it so magic and why it's my favorite financial instrument. So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've been helping people optimize their financial assets, minimize taxes, and empower their authentic wealth now for north of 48 years. As a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist, I've noticed that most retirees, if they make the mistake of following the herd, so to speak, putting money in tax-deferred IRAs and 401ks in the market, that at retirement planning is something totally different than maybe what you did for your retirement planning. And so this is where I help a lot of people get money off of their 1040 tax return so that the IRS knows they're receiving money, but it's cut and dried, it's tax-free because it's been tax-free for over 108 years in the Internal Revenue Code. And so my favorite instrument to do this is a max-funded IUL policy structured correctly and funded properly. And I call that, if you do that correctly and fund it properly, it passes the laser test, the safety test, and the rate of return test with flying colors, and it's tax-free to boot. And very few Americans have money in instruments at retirement that are totally tax-free. Let me just say it this way. Many people would come to me at retirement, and maybe they have been savers, and they would come in and say, Doug, between my spouse and myself, we have 2.6 million saved. And so we calculate based upon the 4% rule and what have you, that we could pull out 160,000 a year out of our IRAs and 401ks. And we have another 40,000 maybe in Social Security or a defined benefit pension because my wife was a school teacher or something. So we have 200,000 of income. And I go, wow, way to go. And they go, well, you don't sound that impressed. And I go, well, I see one big problem. And they go, well, what's that? Well, all 200,000 of this is showing up on the front page of your 1040 tax return and will for the rest of your life. You mean there's another way? I go, yeah. And they usually say, well, where have you been? I didn't know there was another way. I said, well, you probably had your head in the sand just following the herd, putting money in the company's 401k. Now you're having to deal with tax on the back end because you have 200,000 of income, but you're going to shell out 40, 50, 60,000 of that in tax every single year the rest of your life. And if you keep deferring and taking RMDs, whose retirement were you planning? Yours or Uncle Sam's? And so I go, we need to get at least 40, maybe up to 60% or more of that off of your 1040 tax return. Well, how do you do that? Is this legitimate? Is this laser fund legitimate? I go, absolutely. How come I've never heard of it before? Well, in my circles, thousands of people use it. But sometimes it's not until you're hurting because of taxes and inflation and market volatility that people finally pay attention. So I have to cure this problem that they have. I wish I could have prevented the disease. I'm having to cure it. And I'm talking about financial dis-ease. When you're not at ease physically at a cellular level, we call that dis-ease. Well, a lot of people have financial or tax dis-ease. And so I've had to cure that. I wish I could have prevented it, but I usually have to cure it. So this is called a strategic rollout, not a rollover. We have to get money out of those IRAs and 401ks and get the taxes over and done with sooner than later, and then reposition the money into something tax-free from now on, a portfolio of IUL policies. Then they're immune from taxes, inflation, and market volatility because we eliminate those dangers by using max funded IUL. Okay. And so when we talk about a laser fund, if you structure it correctly or fund it properly, okay, both actually, then it passes the laser test: liquidity, safety, rate of return, and tax benefits. So when we talk about money in traditional IRAs or 401ks, you have to deal with taxes and inflation. And unfortunately, a lot of people will outlive their money in those situations. And so there's only 3 types of income Americans pay income tax on ever since 1986 tax reform, the second term of President Ronald Reagan. Earned income, which would be like salaries and wages, and you're not doing that anymore in retirement probably. There is passive income, which is like rental income or lease income if you own property or equipment. But then there's portfolio income. That's like interest or dividends. That's investments, and that's where most IRAs and 401ks are invested. And you have to pay taxes on those 3 types of income. Now, money out of an IUL policy, if you take it out the smart way, is not deemed earned passive or portfolio income. It's tax-free. It's just cut and dried. And so if you have income that is not earned passive or portfolio income, there's nowhere on a tax return to put it. It's not a loophole. The IRS knows you're receiving it. They know everything, but they know it's tax-free. Okay. Now you can watch other episodes to understand this, but I have had many, many thousands of clients who will utilize a max funded IUL. And in the worst periods, like the Great Recession, 2000 to 2010, with IUL, even without rebalancing the portfolio, they earned 7.23%. Okay. And that's if they fell asleep and woke up 10 years later, they would have doubled their money, because 7.2 into the rule of 72 means your money will double in 10 years. Now, in actuality, most of my clients earn 10.07 or even 11.17 because they don't have to sit there and earn 0, 5 of those down years, because most 10-year periods have 7 up years versus 3 down years. From 2000 to 2010, we had 5 loss years compared to 5 up years. If you just fell asleep, you had 5 years where you didn't make anything. You didn't lose, but you didn't make anything. The other 5 years you did, but your average was 7.23. See, I met with my clients annually, and so I rebalanced their portfolio. So there are only 2 of the 5 years they earned 0. The other 3 years they earned the general account portfolio. We didn't link to an index. And so they moved their rate of return from 7.23 up to 10.07, even 11.17. Okay. Let's just use 7.2. If you started out with $125,000 one time, and you earn 7.2, it'll double in 10 years to 250. In another 10 years, it doubles to 500. And another 10 years, it doubles to $1 million. Okay. Now, let's say you have $1 million nest egg. Now, I have actually earned 9.6. And this is ever since 1980 when it was first introduced. With rebalancing, I have earned some years as high as 153% with multipliers. Let's just be super conservative. You don't need pie in the sky rates of return to have a rate of return that outpaces inflation. So 9.62 is what I've averaged since 1980, even before Indexed Universal Life came out. At 9.6, my money doubles every 7.5 years. You divide 9.6 into 72, your money doubles every 7.5 years. So $500,000, I've had many, many clients put in $500,000 one time, and it doubled in 7.5 years to $1 million, okay? And then in another 7.5, in the 15th year, it was worth $2 million. It doubles again, and then it doubles again to $4 million in 22.5 years. And by the end of 30 years, they have $8 million. Yeah, we have clients with Indexed Universal Life that started out with $500,000, and 30 years later, they have $8 million. And, you know, some advisors go, I've never seen anybody earn very much in those. And I'm going, oh, really? Well, then you haven't seen our clients and what they've been able to earn. We have a client, a couple in California. We took them from the highest tax bracket to a 0% tax bracket in 5 years. When they got all through with their IRAs or 401ks, we ended up with $4 million net in a strategic rollout. And they ended up 7.5 years later with over $8 million. They have $8 million. And it's generating between $600,000 to $800,000 or more a year in earnings. They don't need that much. They only pull out $300,000 because it's tax-free. And so it grows in spite of taking 300,000 out. It grows by $500,000 because it's earning way more than they're taking out. They will not outlive their money. But let's look at this. People say, prove it to me. We have thousands of statements of our clients. We diversify our clients into superior vehicles. Now, these are some of the statements from my son's clients. And this is where they have maybe 20%. Let's say they have $1 million and they have 20% or 200,000 linked to the Bloomberg U.S. Dynamic Balance Index. Maybe the S&P 500, maybe the Dow Jones, maybe the NASDAQ. See, you diversify into superior vehicles and they get one annual statement on one sheet of paper. And it shows, this 200,000 of your million got credited this year 14.89. Another 20%, a fifth of your money, got credited 10 and a quarter. Another got 15.07 and another 8 and another 13. See, that's diversification. We don't know at the beginning of the year which one's going to outperform the other, but hello, you do the average of that, it's over 10%. We've been doing this for years. Another client statement, same basic concept. They diversified in 5, 14.89, 16 and a half, 10 and a quarter, 15.07, 13. These are actual statements. We have thousands of these statements from our clients. And yet there are critics out there that go, I've never seen one do that. Well, because you've never seen it, you don't exist, you don't think it exists. Have you seen your brain? How do you know that exists? That's such stupid reasoning to me. Here is an example of clients in the year 2021. Now, when you have an advisor that understands what they're doing, they will meet with you annually, okay? And so what happened in March of 2020? The COVID-19 pandemic caused the market to begin to crash. It dropped 30% in March of 2020. Now, when there's anxiety, there's opportunity. My two sons called their clients and said, hey, link to a 1-year point-to-point no cap. Now, that normally is not a strategy they will use because if you choose a no cap, there's no cap to your return. That means that the insurance company is going to subtract 5 percentage points. So if the market goes up 15, you'll only net 10. If it goes up 10, you'll only net 5. But they knew the chance that the market would do very well after a 30% loss, that it's worth 5% on the back end. So they told their clients to take some or all of their money and link it to a 1-year point-to-point no cap. So in March of 2021, you can't see this, but this is a statement in March of 2021. This client had 6,100 in the 1-year indexed account with a cap, okay? And they got credited 9% on that. They had another 6,300 in a high cap index, and they ended up with 12% return on that one. They had another 6,100 in a high par index, and so they got 7 and a quarter. But they chose to put 18,000. So when you add all this up, they had 3 times as much in that one as the others, and they got 61.33%. Because the market from March of 2020 to March of 2021 went up 66.33%, minus the 5% spread. They netted 61.33%. So you add it all up, and this is their rate of return. It was phenomenal. Now, we had some clients that said, I'm going to do the whole thing. This is a client who started out in March of 2020 with $872,786. And in the year from March 2020 to March of 2021, they got 61.33%. They made $535,000 tax-free on top of their $872,000. They ended up 1 year later with $1,387,000. They made $500,000. It also means that if the market crashed the next year, they would not lose one dime of this $1,387,000. You lock in that gain and you reset. If the next year the market crashes, you do not lose one dime of the $500,000 you made the year before. Now, I won't even show you the statement of the client who used a multiplier. That's another strategy that I explain on other episodes, but some people got 2.7 times that. Many clients got 153% gains in one single year. That is the strategy. So when people say, is this laser fund legitimate? How much more legitimate can you get than actual proof that this works? This is one of the most dynamic strategies I could ever share with you. If you want to learn more so that you don't miss out, make sure you read and study this and also find an advisor that can help you implement this correctly. So this is my 11th book. It's called The Laser Fund, How to Diversify and Create the Foundation for a Tax-Free Retirement. If you go to laserfund.com, L-A-S-E-R fund.com, and you contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling, you have to have some skin in the game yourself, I will cover the rest of that cost and I will pay for the book and I'll fire out a hard copy to you. 300 pages of charts, graphs, and explanations. You flip it over and there's over 62 client stories in 12 chapters on this side. So whether you learn by left brain or right brain, it's all covered in this book. But here's the key. You will be able to listen and learn, watch and learn if you want. Check out some of the webinars in there. But if you want me to point you to an advisor who understands how to do this correctly so that it is legitimate, because the reason why you probably think it isn't is because you're looking at policies that were not structured correctly. This is about you and your brighter future, and I don't want you to make any mistakes that you have to have undone down the road. Do it right the first time.